what they actually say to you is they love you and you say, I love you more. That's what you say every single time.
Michael Jackson's children are no longer the little shadows who once hid behind their father's masks and veils. Today, they are grown, and they are living lives that would shock even the king of pop himself.
All right, tell me what the children mean to you, your own children.
They mean, it's hard to put it in words because they mean everything. The way you would explain how your children make you feel. I mean, they're the world.
Prince, Paris, and Big E each stepped into adulthood far beyond the gates of Neverland, and each has carved out a path almost no one could have predicted. More than 16 years after the world lost their father, and with his name suddenly everywhere again in 2026, thanks to a major new movie about his life, this is the inside story of the lives of Michael Jackson's 3 children after his death. Prince Michael Jackson. On February the 13th, 1997, Michael Jackson's life changed forever with the arrival of his first child, Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., born in Los Angeles to Michael and his then-wife, Debbie Rowe. From the very beginning, the baby carried not only the weight of his father's legendary name, but also the hopes of a man who had spent his whole life longing for a sense of family and normalcy. Though he was christened with his father's full name, the boy quickly became known by his nickname, Prince, a title the fans and the media adopted with ease. Michael never hid the overwhelming joy that fatherhood brought him. In a heartfelt statement after Prince arrived, he said that words simply could not describe how he felt, that he had been blessed beyond comprehension, and that he would work tirelessly to be the best father he possibly could. For a man who had lived under the public gaze since childhood, protecting his son from that same glare was deeply personal. I grew up in a fishbowl, he admitted, and he vowed he would never let the same thing happen to his child, asking the world to respect his family and give his son some privacy. From the start, the newborn was surrounded by an unusual circle of guardians. His godparents were the child star Macaulay Culkin, who had become one of Michael's closest friends, and the Hollywood icon Elizabeth Taylor, who had stood by the singer through both triumph and controversy. Despite the joy of Prince's birth, Michael's marriage to Rowe was short-lived. The couple divorced in 1999, just 2 years after welcoming their second child, Paris. Rowe gave up her parental rights, and Michael took full custody of both children. Determined to give them a childhood unlike his own, he raised Prince and Paris behind the gates of Neverland Ranch, the sprawling estate that became both their playground and their safe haven, a world of animals, amusement rides, and a kind of freedom Michael himself had never known as a boy. Still, even that sheltered life could not escape the world's fascination. Whenever the family went out in public, Michael famously draped veils, masks, or blankets over his children's faces to hide their identities. The practice was mocked in the press, but Michael always insisted it was the only way to keep them from being recognized and hounded. The same suffocating scrutiny that had defined his own life. Everything changed in 2009, when Michael Jackson died suddenly at the age of 50. The world mourned an unmatched entertainer, but for Prince and his siblings, the loss was far more intimate. They had lost the father who had been their constant protector. Their care passed to their grandmother, Katherine Jackson, who stepped in to raise them within the wider Jackson family, working to give them stability even as legal battles over Michael's estate and relentless public curiosity swirled around them. By the time he reached adulthood, Prince had already spent years living under the public eye while quietly building his own identity. In 2019, he reached a major milestone, graduating from Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles with a degree in business administration. For Prince, education was never only about academics. It was about gaining the tools to make an impact beyond the fame attached to his surname, a way to step out of his father's enormous shadow and build a life rooted in purpose and service. Outside the classroom, Prince leaned into passions that showed off his adventurous, creative side. A devoted motorcycle enthusiast, he launched a YouTube channel documenting his rides across California's scenic highways, capturing both the thrill of the open road and the sense of freedom that came with it. The channel also featured lighter moments, including film review sessions with his younger brother Biggie and their cousin Taj Jackson, giving fans a rare glimpse of the siblings' bond and of Prince's down-to-earth humor. Prince also poured himself into philanthropy. In 2016, alongside a classmate, he co-founded Heal Los Angeles, a charity inspired directly by his father's own Heal the World Foundation, and he has since built a career around service, media projects, and running his own production company, King Sun Productions. Heal Los Angeles began by empowering underserved young people through educational programs, but its mission grew as Prince set out to meet urgent community needs. The true test came in 2020 when the pandemic struck. With unemployment soaring and families going hungry, Prince and his team quickly adapted, partnering with a meal delivery service to get food to those hit hardest. For Prince, it was a chance to honor his father, not through spectacle, but through quiet action. He said he liked to think his father would be very proud, because one of Michael's deepest goals had always been to see his message of kindness actually lived out by his children. No one, Prince added, can solve the world's problems alone. And that belief that we all need to help each other was something his father had raised him to carry. Prince has always spoken sparingly about the private side of growing up as Michael Jackson's eldest son. Yet now and then he has offered a glimpse of the man behind the myth. One such moment came in October 2022, during a celebration marking the 40th anniversary of Thriller. Speaking to People magazine, Prince said simply, "I think about him every day." While the world remembers Michael, the dazzling performer, Prince's memories are far more tender. What he said he missed most were his father's hands, strong and big, firm but gentle, hands that had once guided and protected him, and whose absence he still felt more than a decade later. But even as he honors his father's memory, Prince has built a life full of love and new beginnings. In August 2025, he announced his engagement to his longtime girlfriend, Molly Shermang, whom he first met back in 2017 while the two were students together at Loyola Marymount. Now, 28, Prince shared the happy news on Instagram, setting the post to his father's 1987 love song, "I Just Can't Stop Loving You." 8 years down, he wrote, and forever to go, telling Molly they had traveled the world, graduated, and grown so much together, and signing off simply, "I love you, Babs." His words radiated a warmth and stability rooted not in fleeting romance, but in nearly a decade of devotion, a milestone celebrated by the whole Jackson clan, including his grandmother Catherine, now 95. And in April 2026, now 29 years old, Prince stepped onto the red carpet alongside the wider Jackson family for the premiere of the new biopic Michael, standing shoulder to shoulder with his cousin Jafar Jackson, who portrays the very father Prince lost. For the eldest son who has spent his whole life quietly guarding his father's memory, it was a full-circle moment, watching Michael's story told all over again for a brand new generation. Paris Jackson, Michael Catherine Jackson, was born on April 3, 1998, in Los Angeles, the second child of Michael Jackson and Debbie Rowe. Her name carried layers of meaning. Paris for the city where she was conceived, Michael for her father, and Catherine in honor of her grandmother. From the moment she was born, Paris was bound to her family's immense legacy, her life unfolding beneath the shadow of one of the most famous men in history. Like her brother Prince, Her godparents were the actor Macaulay Culkin and the Hollywood legend Elizabeth Taylor. The course of Paris's childhood was shattered in 2009 when Michael Jackson died suddenly. She was only 11, and she was thrust into the global spotlight at his memorial service, where her tearful words reminded the world that behind the superstar was a devoted dad. Privately, though, the grief pressed down on her with tremendous weight. By her teenage years, Paris was struggling in ways the public could not see. She has since spoken about that period with remarkable honesty, telling Rolling Stone that, as a young teenager, she reached a place of such deep despair that she tried more than once to take her own life, and that in 2015 she was hospitalized during that dark stretch. Looking back years later, she described what she had carried as a kind of self-hatred, a low self-esteem that left her feeling worthless and unable to do anything right. Determined to heal, she checked herself into a treatment facility in 2019 to focus on her physical and emotional well-being, a decision a source close to her framed as a hopeful step toward getting healthy and ready for the future. That decision to fight for herself would define the years that followed. In January 2025, Paris marked an extraordinary milestone, celebrating 5 full years of sobriety from drugs and alcohol. It is because she is sober, she told her followers, that she now gets to smile, to make music, to love her pets, and to feel joy and heartbreak in all their fullness. For a young woman who had once questioned whether she was worthy of living at all, it was a hard-won triumph, and a sign of just how far she had come. Alongside her recovery, Paris slowly rebuilt the relationships around her. As a teenager, she reconnected with her mother, Debbie Rowe, and their bond grew naturally, without pressure. Speaking on Red Table Talk with Willow Smith, Paris described it warmly, saying it was cool getting to know her mother as a friend, discovering how alike they were, right down to their taste in music. Her siblings, though, have always been her strongest anchors, especially her older brother Prince, whom she often calls her twin. In 2020, she confessed that he was everything to her, that she had always looked up to him and wanted to be more like him. With her youngest brother, Biggie, she has shared an equally supportive bond, especially in navigating the family's complicated legacy. As she grew older, Paris also embraced her identity with candor. She has spoken openly about her sexuality while rejecting strict labels, explaining that she has dated more than just men and women, so no single word quite fits. In 2021, she admitted that talking about sexuality within her deeply religious family had not been easy, and that she had reached a place of respecting their beliefs, while quietly refusing to let others' expectations become her burden. What people thought of her, she decided, was simply not her business. Like her father, Paris ultimately turned to music, both as a calling and as an outlet. She has performed with several bands and explored styles far removed from the pop empire her family is known for. In 2020, she released her debut solo album, Wilted, a folk-inspired project full of her ethereal voice and introspective songwriting. Everyone in her family does music, she joked, so it made sense that she would too, even if she was a Jackson doing folk indie. The comment captured her whole journey, part of a dynasty, yet determined to chart her own course. She has kept building on that. In February 2023, she released a single called Band-Aid, which she described as louder and more fun than earlier songs like Just You and Lighthouse, even as she stayed true to the acoustic folk approach at the heart of her songwriting. She also revealed she had enough recorded material for a full album, with dozens of songs written. But Paris has never been confined to one medium. She is a model and an actress, too, serving as the face of KVD Beauty and appearing on screen in the anthology series American Horror Story and the Hulu teen comedy Sex Appeal, showing a willingness to take creative risks. In October 2022, her fashion world even brought a sweet family reunion when she sat beside her Aunt Janet Jackson at a Fashion Week event in Paris, a quiet moment that delighted longtime fans. Her personal life, too, has stayed in the public eye. In December 2024, Paris announced her engagement to the music producer Justin Blue Long, whom she had been dating since 2022. The relationship was cheered on by fans who admired their shared love of music, but it did not last. By July 2025, after paparazzi caught her in tears in Malibu, Paris confirmed the split herself, writing bluntly on social media that, yes, those were breakup tears. True to form, she chose honesty over silence, the same openness she has shown since she first began speaking about her struggles as a teenager. Through it all, her music career has only gathered momentum. In the summer of 2025, she was out on the road touring alongside the rock bands Incubus and Manchester Orchestra, calling it a dream to share the stage with her heroes. And later that year, she was set to open for Queens of the Stone Age. The frightened, grieving girl the world once watched at a funeral had grown into a resilient working artist, living openly and on her own terms. Into 2026, Paris turned 28 and kept evolving. She had been openly critical of the Michael biopic in 2025, saying she valued honesty over sales. But by the time the film arrived, she offered warmer words, publicly wishing her cousin Jafar and the cast joy and success. And on a podcast that spring, she revealed a quiet shift within herself, saying she had finally learned that her relationship with her father was hers alone and no one else's business, and that there was real freedom in keeping it private. She was also back in the studio, hard at work on new music, proof that the artist first glimpsed on that folk album years earlier was really only just getting started. Biggie Jackson. Of Michael Jackson's 3 children, Biggie has always been the most private. Born in 2002 by way of a surrogate, he was originally named Prince Michael Jackson II, but the world quickly came to know him by the nickname his father gave him, Blanket. Michael explained that the name was meant as a gesture of love and protection, but in the public eye, it became a source of curiosity and, too often, of mockery. The nickname first drew global attention in November 2002, when Michael, in a moment he would later admit was a terrible mistake, briefly held the infant up over a hotel balcony in Berlin to show him to the crowd of fans waiting below. The image flashed around the world in an instant, and from that day forward, the baby the family called Blanket was an object of relentless public fascination long before he was old enough to understand any of it. It was a spectacle he would spend his adult life quietly stepping out of. As he grew older, Biggie distanced himself from that childhood nickname. In 2015, he made the decision to legally change his name to Biggie, a symbolic step toward claiming an identity of his own, separate from the legacy and the spectacle attached to his father. And unlike his older siblings, he has largely stayed out of the spotlight altogether. Those who know him describe a young man who is thoughtful, intelligent, and deeply devoted to his family, above all, to his older brother. A family friend once told people that Biggie and Prince are essentially best friends, 2 quiet souls who bond over a shared love of science and science fiction. It is a glimpse of a gentler, less public side of the Jackson children, one built not around performance and fame, but around curiosity, learning, and imagination. Most of Biggie's milestones have been celebrated quietly, within the family. In 2020, he marked his 18th birthday with his siblings at a sushi restaurant. a simple gathering that said everything about their closeness. Fans have occasionally caught that bond on camera. On Prince's YouTube channel, the two brothers, sometimes joined by their cousin Taj, have sat down together to review films, trading jokes and easy banter like any other pair of siblings. In those relaxed, unguarded moments, Biggie comes across not as the son of a global icon, but simply as a thoughtful, funny young man who happens to love a good movie and the company of his older brother. It is exactly the kind of ordinary happiness Michael once said he wanted most for his children. His sister Paris shared a heartfelt tribute that day, marveling that her little brother was suddenly a legal adult, posting throwback photos and remembering how she had once changed his diapers, only to watch him grow into a handsome, intelligent, funny, and kind young man. She also gently protected him, noting that he loves his privacy. And so, she wrote, that was all she was going to say. Despite his quiet nature, Biggie has not vanished entirely. In a rare 2021 interview, he opened up about his outlook on life and his hopes for the future. He said he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, though not necessarily through music or performance. Instead, like all three siblings, he hoped to make things that people would enjoy, but that would also genuinely improve their lives. One cause in particular has fired his passion, the climate crisis. Rather than shy away from difficult global conversations, Biggie has spoken plainly about its urgency, saying there is real work to be done, but that his generation understands just how important it is. For a young man who says so little in public, it was a rare and telling window into a mind that clearly takes the future, and his own responsibility to it, very seriously. Now in his early 20s, Biggie has continued to guard his privacy fiercely, even as he quietly steps out for the family from time to time. In August 2023, he appeared publicly alongside his brother Prince to mark what would have been their father's 65th birthday. A rare glimpse of the youngest Jackson honoring the dad he was only 7 years old when he lost. If Prince has become the family's public face and Paris its most open heart, Biggie remains its quiet conscience, thoughtful, private, and determined to make his mark on his own terms. That quiet devotion showed itself again in April 2026. Now, 24, Biggie joined his brother Prince at the world premiere of the Michael biopic in Berlin, the two of them wearing armbands and small gold crown emblems on their jackets, a subtle nod to their father's signature style. For the most private of the three children, it was a rare and touching public tribute, a moment of stepping into the spotlight, not for himself, but for the dad he had lost when he was only 7. So, now we want to hear from you. Which of Michael Jackson's three children do you find the most inspiring? And do you think their father would be proud of the people they have grown into today? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.